These are the top 10 worst Magic sets in the history of Magic the Gathering. Since 1993, we've had well over 200 openable, draftable booster packs, and some of them are just stinkers. So today we're going to count down the worst Magic sets ever with a couple quick honorable mentions before we hit the official top 10. Here we go. Honorable mention number 1 is going to be the Epilogue booster packs from Aftermath, released just last year. These were 5-card booster packs that were effectively supposed to be like a sequel set to March of the Machine. But the marketing and the rollout of the set was so bad that no one bought it. And the only proof this set even kind of exists for most players is that there's like 4 or 5 cards that some of us actually play in decks. Notably, there's like a Karn, there's a Calyx, and of course there's the Nissa that's really, really good. I personally like Filter Out. But most of all, this set happened last summer, and most players have kind of already forgotten that it even happened, to the point that they actually folded in the sequel set, the Epilogue set they were going to release for Thunder Junction, into the main set. That's why we have a big score. Aftermath is going to be our first honorable mention for worst Magic sets ever, even though I like some of the cards. Honorable mention number 2, I'm going to go with Alara Reborn. This was an all multicolor set released right around 2010 in the Shards of Alara block. And while Alara Reborn certainly has 1 or 2 cards that I think are pretty well liked by players overall, the secondary market has not been kind to the set, with only a single card over $10 at this point. On top of which, it was awkward for draft formats, and even today opening packs just seems kind of underwhelming. It's mostly just the novelty of everything being multicolor. I don't hate this set, but it's certainly in the lower tier. It's an honorable mention for worst Magic sets of all time. And finally, our third pick for worst Magic sets of all time in the honorable mentions bracket is going to be 5th edition. Released in 1997, 5th edition is kind of like everything that's wrong with core sets around this time. Revised had already stripped out all the power and left the dual lands, right? When you got to 4th edition, you had 1 or 2 cool cards. 5th edition was like truly the worst of the worst. There's 1 or 2 cards you can open that are cool. Mana Vault comes to mind. But I mean, at this point, Wheel of Fortune, Demonic Tutor, they're all long gone. You were reprinting cards at this point from those horrible 1995, 1996 sets. Just lots of like Ice Age, Mirage, The Dark, Poop getting reprinted in white border. It's a tough one. It's our third honorable mention. Okay, let's get to our official top 10 worst Magic sets ever. Here we go. Coming in as our number 10 worst Magic set ever, we have Rivals of Ixalan. Now, Rivals of Ixalan hits at this funny place in Magic, because for all the talk of power creep, right around this time when Rivals of Ixalan came out, this was kind of like an ultimate low point in Magic power level. They had really taken a lot of the juice out of the cards, but Ixalan had already happened. And so dinosaurs and pirates and this whole cool idea, we had a sequel set of just like more crappy cards. Nobody likes this set. Nobody likes opening this set. Everything felt weak and underpowered, and within a few years we had like War of the Spark and Throne of Eldraine and Horizons 1, but for a brief period of time there, it took us back to those Mercadian Masks block days where the cards just sucked. Rival of Ixalan is going to be our number 10 worst Magic set of all time. Our number 9 pick for the worst Magic set of all time is going to be Dragon's Maze. Back in 2012, we got Return to Ravnica. Everybody was really excited, Shocklands were back, the flavor was really fun, the draft format was cool. Then they gave us Gatecrash. It was alright, it was pretty cool, a little bit of the same. Then they gave us Dragon's Maze, and it was like, okay guys, we get it, the power level is really low, nobody likes this set. Maze's End, I think, is the only card in the set worth more than $3 at this point. Like, it is truly bargain basement on this set. And I'm a fan of Master of Cruelties, and Voice of Resurgence definitely had its moment, but I just think overall, when you look back at this set, the limited environment was pretty bad, and the set has almost nothing memorable about it whatsoever. It's our number 9 worst Magic set ever. Coming in at number 8 on our worst Magic sets of all time list, we have Saviors of Kamigawa. The Champions of Kamigawa era is quite funny, because if you go back and you look at it, you know, Betrayers has ninjas, that's pretty cool. Champions was introducing like a bunch of new flavor, and thematically was just a totally new thing, but by the time you got to Saviors, you're probably noticing a trend, which is that the third set is often quite bad in old blocks. There just wasn't much to like. You go back to look at Saviors, and other than like Pithing Needle, there's almost nothing good about this set. It's even funnier because thematically, you know, Neon Dynasty, one of the reasons people like it so much is that they took a lot of the flavor of the old Kamigawa stuff and then just modernized it in a way that was really, really great. Saviors is like everything that can possibly go wrong. Super insular design, just not very memorable cards, extremely underpowered commons for limited. Saviors is a weak set and comes in for us at the number 8 slot for worst Magic sets of all time. Let's get to number 7. Our number 7 worst Magic set ever is The Dark. And guys, I just sorted an entire set of The Dark. This was an 8-card booster pack set released directly after Anthologies. This is right before we get into that soupy kind of Fallen Empires Ice Age sort of territory. And there's a few really cool iconic cards from The Dark. You got Maze of Ith, you got Blood Moon, you've got Ball Lightning, Elves of Deep Shadow. Kind of stops right there. Goblin Wizard, Preacher, Dust to Dust. There's a few playable cards outside the few that I mentioned, but really overall, the power level here is extremely low. The packs have 8 cards. Even the card quality in these packs, every single card feels like it's lightly played straight out of the pack. It's just flimsy, kind of gross. I love old Magic cards, but The Dark is a really, really bad Magic set. There are some just abysmal, terrible Magic cards, obviously, that were, you know, built upon by worse, more abysmal, terrible Magic cards in the year or two that followed, but The Dark is still pretty bad. I think it gets a little bit more credit because of literally Maze of Ith and Blood Moon. but it is undeniably ass. The Dark's going to be number 7. Coming in the number 6 slot, we have Chronicles. This is one of the sets that is almost single-handedly responsible for having killed Magic. Chronicles was an expansion set from right around that same time period as kind of 5th edition, right? And the idea with this set was they were going to take really expensive cards from like Legends and Antiquities, Arabian Nights. They were going to give us really cheap white-bordered versions, just like you would get in a booster pack of like 4th or 5th edition, but they were going to put the expansion symbol on the card, just so you and everybody else would know you had the fake cheap version of a cool expensive card. The reserve list came as a direct result of Chronicles. People were so mad about their Elder Dragons and their Blood Moons and all the sweet cards that they had getting reprinted in this ugly treatment, which, by the way, I don't think is that ugly. I kind of love Chronicles cards. But it was literally the entire reason that the reserve list was implemented, right? A bunch of cards that Wizards said, we're not going to reprint again. We're not going to, reprint the value of your collection into the ground. Chronicles is like a hilarious moment because there have been so many reprint sets since that have just like decimated card prices. But at the time, the community had a lot of say there. Wizards reacted, and that's why Chronicles is so hated. It's our number 6 worst Magic set ever. Okay, let's get to our top 5 worst Magic sets ever. Up first, we have Cold Snap. This was the spiritual return to Ice Age that came out years later. Cold Snap is well documented as one of Magic's biggest piles of crap. It is famously a set that was essentially designed in a weekend. It has a bunch of strange mechanics that just don't feel particularly well thought out, because they aren't. It kind of had this whole like nostalgic throwback thing because you had Ice Age and Alliances from back in the day, like 1996, and they were like, okay, 10 years later, we'll do Cold Snap. It's around the time of Planar Chaos and Time Spiral and Future Sight, so it was like, okay, we have another nostalgic set. This is part of this whole like throwing back to the roots of Magic thing, but Cold Snap just isn't good. It's really most notable for the card Thrumming Stone, which is a card that introduced us to the keyword Ripple, one of the worst keywords of all time. You had Orin Viper, which was pretty good. That was like the best card in the set for a long time. Jotun Grunt, Sheltering Ancient. There's some like real sketch cards that I kind of love, but I think that overall this set is quite bad. In the end, as the years have gone on, Commandeer, Soul Spike, Fury of the Horde, we've seen more cards from Cold Snap actually get play. It's just that as a set overall, it feels like throwing back to something that was pretty bad and just isn't well designed. It's generally pretty hated, and it is our number 5 worst Magic set of all time. Though I do love to throw a pack of this into Chaos Draft just for fun. Coming in number 4, we've got Prophecy, the 3rd set in the Mercadian Masks block. Prophecy is notoriously underpowered, and the main mechanic in Prophecy is this card does a thing unless your opponent pays X, right? So a lot of the cards in Prophecy just don't work a lot of the time, right? We've talked about Rhystic Cave, a land that taps for any color mana unless your opponent pays 1 and otherwise does not do anything. It's famous because Rhystic Study has a common from this set, right, which is unless they pay 1. It's kind of like the good version of that effect. And then Troubled Healer is really good for limited. Avatar of Woe, the Avatar cycle, they're all pretty iconic in terms of Magic art. But overall, this is one of the lowest powered sets ever and is hilarious to open and play with today. Yet another set that I love throwing into Chaos Draft. It almost seems like I like throwing bad sets into Chaos Draft. Who knew? Prophecy is a Hall of Fame bad set. It is our number 4 worst Magic set of all time. Coming in as our number 3 worst Magic set of all time, we've got Magic 30th Anniversary Edition. This set is notorious and probably shouldn't even be on this list because it's not really technically a set of Magic cards. They don't have regular Magic backs. These are like collectible pieces of game memorabilia. The gist here was that you could get 4 of these packs for $1,000. They had 15 cards in them, and they were basically like repacked versions of Alpha, so you could open a Black Lotus in a new border or an old border. They were supposed to be a celebration of Magic's 30th anniversary, but the way they were rolled out, they ended up feeling like one of the most gatekeepy products of all time. They also, because of the fact that so many of the cards that were in the set are on the reserve list, and these aren't technically reprints because they're not technically Magic cards, it just kind of rubbed everybody the wrong way. I don't think I can remember in my lifetime having a product come out that was as hated as Magic 30th Anniversary Edition. In many ways, this should just be number 1. It's just not as notoriously, hilariously bad as the top 2 slots on this list, both of which you guys probably know if you have paid attention to bad Magic sets for a long time. But Magic 30th Anniversary Edition, for all of us, holds a special place in the circles of hell as the 3rd Magic set on the worst list ever. Okay, let's get to our top 2. The number 2 worst Magic set ever is the very first Magic set that I ever opened a booster pack of. We got Fallen Empires coming to us in 1995, year 3 of Magic. Fallen Empires was a set that gave you 8 Magic cards, and similar to the Dark, the card quality feels low. There are very few cards in this set of any significance. Rainbow Veil is the most expensive card in this set. It's worth like $6, and it's on the reserve list. The top 2 sets on this list both have the same thing in common. The cards are incredibly weak and incredibly wordy. If we thought the Dark was bad, I mean, the Dark at least has a few insanely good Magic cards. There's nothing insanely good in Fallen Empires. It is a horrifically bad Magic set. The best card probably in the entire set is Hymn to Tourach, a really great, hand disruption spell. But overall, Fallen Empires is notorious and is many people's pick as the worst Magic set of all time. If it weren't for this top slot on our list that many people also think is the worst Magic product ever. The worst Magic set of all time is Homelands. Straight up. If you were waiting for it, you were right. If you think Fallen Empires is one, you're also probably right. They're both really, really, really up there. Homelands came almost directly after Fallen Empires. It was like a year later or so, and it was similarly terrible. Now, it does have Didgeridoo, which is a card that makes Minotaurs sweet, so that's a little more expensive, but, overall, Homelands is the same problem. There was, multiple artwork treatments of bad cards, horribly inefficient legends. It's another 8-card booster pack, which is funny. It has some cards on the reserve list, just like Fallen Empires. Koskun Falls is one of the cards on this. Leeches is worth a couple bucks, I believe. But even the cards in the set that are worth anything are basically totally unplayable. Maybe Koskun Falls is the best one. Fallen Empires and Homelands are kind of a time capsule of hilariousness because the cards are so bad, and I actually love to put a pack of Homelands and Fallen Empires in the same stack for Chaos Draft because it's 16 cards, right? So it's basically just a regular draft seat. The cards are all super wordy, low-powered, nobody likes them, and I think it's hilarious. So Homelands is the worst Magic set ever. Do you agree or disagree? Leave your thoughts below in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.